Good Boys Deserve Favours by Neil Gaiman. My own children delight in hearing true tales from my childhood. The time my father threatened to arrest the traffic cop, how I broke my sister's front teeth twice, when I pretended to be twins, and even the day I accidentally killed a gerbil. I have never told them this story. I would be hard put to tell you quite why not. When I was 9, the school told us that we could pick any musical instrument we wanted. Some boys chose the violin, the clarinet, the oboe. Some chose the timpani, the pianoforte, the viola. I was not big for my age, and I, alone in the junior school, elected to play the double bass, chiefly because I loved the incongruity of the idea. I loved the idea of being a small boy, playing, delighting in, carrying around an instrument much taller than I was. The double bass belonged to the school, and I was deeply impressed by it. I learned to bow, although I had little interest in bowing technique, preferring to pluck the huge metal strings by hand. My right index finger was permanently puffed with white blisters, until the blisters eventually became calluses. I delighted in discovering the history of the double bass, that it was no part of the sharp, scraping family of the violin, the viola, the cello. Its curves were gentler, softer, more sloping. It was, in fact, the final survivor of an extinct family of instruments, the viol family, and was, more correctly, the bass viol. I learnt this from the double bass teacher, an elderly musician imported by the school to teach me, and also to teach a couple of senior boys for a few hours each week. He was a clean-shaven man, balding and intense with long, calloused fingers. I would do all I could to make him tell me about the bass, tell me of his experiences as a session musician, of his life cycling around the country. He had a contraption attached to the back of his bicycle on which his bass rested, and he pedalled sedately through the countryside with the bass behind him. He had never married. Good double bass players, he told me, were men who made poor husbands. He had many such observations. There were no great male cellists, that's one I remember, and his opinion of viola players of either sex was scarcely repeatable. He called the school double bass she. She could do with a good coat of varnish, he'd say, and you take care of her, she'll take care of you. I was not a particularly good double bass player. There was little enough that I could do with the instrument on my own, and all I remember of my enforced membership in the school orchestra was getting lost in the score and sneaking glances at the cellos beside me, waiting for them to turn the page so I could start playing once more, punctuating the orchestral schoolboy cacophony with low, uncomplicated bass notes. It has been too many years, and I have almost forgotten how to read music. But when I dream of reading music, I still dream in the bass clef. All cows eat grass. Good boys deserve favours always. After lunch each day, the boys who played instruments walked down to the music school and had music practice, while the boys who didn't lay on their beds and read their books and their comics. I rarely practiced. Instead, I would take a book down to the music school and read it surreptitiously, perched on my high stool, holding on to the smooth brown wood of the bass, the bow in one hand, the better to fool the casual observer. I was lazy and uninspired. My bowing scrubbed and scratched where it should have glided and boomed. My fingering was hesitant and clumsy. Other boys worked at their instruments. I did not. As long as I was sitting at the bass for half an hour each day, no one cared. I had the nicest, largest room to practice in too, as the double bass was kept in a cupboard in the master music room. Our school, I should tell you, had only one famous old boy. It was part of school legend, how the famous old boy had been expelled from the school after driving a sports car across the cricket pitch, while drunk, how he had gone on to fame and fortune, first as a minor actor in Ealing comedies, then as the token English cad in any number of Hollywood pictures. He was never a true star, but during the Sunday afternoon film screening, we would cheer if ever he appeared. When the door handle to the practice room clicked and turned, I put my book down on the piano and leaned forward, turning the page of the dog-eared 52 musical exercises for the double bass, and I heard the headmaster say, "The music school was purpose-built, of course. This is the master practice room," and they came in. They were the headmaster and the head of the music department, a faded, bespectacled man whom I rather liked, and the deputy head of the music department, who conducted the school orchestra and disliked me cordially, and, there could be no mistaking it, the famous old boy himself, in company with a fragrant fair woman who held his arm and looked as if she might also be a movie star. I stopped pretending to play and slipped off my high stool and stood up respectfully, holding the bass by the neck. The headmaster told them about the soundproofing and the carpets and the fundraising drive to raise the money to build the music school, and he stressed that the next stage of rebuilding would need significant further donations, and he was just beginning to expound upon the cost of double glazing when the fragrant woman said, "Just look at him. Is that cute or what?" And they all looked at me. "That's a big violin, be hard to get it under your chin," said the famous old boy, and everyone chortled dutifully. "It's so big," said the woman, "and he's so small." "Hey, but we're stopping you practicing, you carry on, play us something." The headmaster and the head of the music department beamed at me, expectantly. The deputy head of the music department, who was under no illusions as to my musical skills, started to explain that the first violin was practicing next door and would be delighted to play for them, and... "I want to hear him," she said. "How old are you, kid?" 11, miss," I said. She nudged the famous old boy in the ribs. "He called me miss," she said. This amused her. "Go on. Play us something." The famous old boy nodded, and they stood there and they looked at me. The double bass is not a solo instrument, really, not even for the competent, and I was far from competent, but I slid my bottom up onto the stool again, and crooked my fingers around the neck and picked up my bow, heart pounding like a timpani in my chest, and prepared to embarrass myself. Even 20 years later, I remember. I did not even look at 52 musical exercises for the double bass. I played something. It arched and boomed and sang and reverberated. The bow glided over strange and confident arpeggios, and then I put down the bow and plucked a complex and intricate pizzicato melody out of the bass. I did things with the bass that an experienced jazz bass player with hands as big as my head would not have done. I played, and I played, and I played, tumbling down into the 4 taut metal strings, clutching the instrument as I had never clutched a human being. And in the end, breathless and elated, I stopped. The blonde woman led the applause, but they all clapped, even with a strange expression on his face, the deputy head of music. "I didn't know it was such a versatile instrument," said the headmaster. "Very lovely piece. Modern yet classical. Very fine. Bravo." And then he shepherded the 4 of them from the room, and I sat there, utterly drained, the fingers of my left hand stroking the neck of the bass, the fingers of my right caressing her strings. Like any true story, the end of the affair is messy and unsatisfactory. The following day, carrying the huge instrument across the courtyard to the school chapel for orchestra practice in a light rain, I slipped on the wet bricks and fell forward. The wooden bridge of the bays was smashed and the front was cracked. It was sent away to be repaired, but when it returned it was not the same. The strings were higher, harder to pluck. The new bridge seemed to have been installed at the wrong angle. There was, even to my untutored ear, a change in the timbre. I had not taken care of her. She would no longer take care of me. When the following year I changed schools, I did not continue with the double bass. The thought of changing to a new instrument seemed vaguely disloyal, while the dusty black bass that sat in a cupboard in my new school's music rooms seemed to have taken a dislike to me. I was marked another's, and I was tall enough now that there would be nothing incongruous about my standing behind the double bass. And soon enough I knew there would be girls. The Flints of Memory Lane by Neil Gaiman. I like things to be story-shaped. Reality, however, is not story-shaped, and the eruptions of the odd into our lives are not story-shaped either. They do not end in entirely satisfactory ways. Recounting the strange is like telling one's dreams. One can communicate the events of a dream, but not the emotional content, the way that a dream can colour one's entire day. There were places I believed to be haunted as a child, abandoned houses and places that scared me. My solution was to avoid them. And so, while my sisters had wholly satisfactory tales of strange figures glimpsed in the windows of empty houses, I had none. I still don't. This is my ghost story, and an unsatisfactory thing it is too. I was 15. We lived in a new house, built in the garden of our old house. I still miss the old house. It had been a big old manor house. We had lived in half of it. The people who lived in the other half had sold it to property developers, so my father sold our half a house to them as well. This was in Sussex, in a town that was crossed by the zero meridian. I lived in the Eastern Hemisphere and went to school on the Western Hemisphere. The old house had been a treasure trove of strange things. Lumps of glittering marble and glass bulbs filled with liquid mercury, doors that opened onto brick walls, mysterious toys, things old and things forgotten. My own house, a Victorian brick edifice in the middle of America, is, I am told, haunted. There are few people who will spend the night here alone anymore. My assistant tells of her nights on her own here, of the porcelain jester music box that spontaneously began to play in the night, of her utter conviction that someone was watching her. Other people have complained of similar things, following nights alone. I have never had any unsettling experiences here, but then I have never spent a night here alone, and I am not entirely sure that I would wish to. There is no ghost when I am here, I said once, when asked if my house was haunted. Perhaps it is you who haunt it then, someone suggested. But truly I doubt it. If we have a ghost here, it is a fearful creature, more afraid of us than we are of it. But I was telling of our old house, which was sold and knocked down, and I could not bear to see it empty, could not stand to see it being torn apart and bulldozed. My heart was in that house, and even now at night before I sleep, I hear the wind sighing through the rowan tree outside my bedroom window 25 years ago. So we moved into a new house built, as I said, in the garden of the old one, and some years went by. Then, the house was halfway down a winding flint road, surrounded by fields and trees in the middle of nowhere. Now, I am certain were I to go back I would find the flint road paved, the fields an endless housing estate, but I do not go back. I was 15, skinny and gawky, and wanting desperately to be cool. It was night, in autumn. Outside our house was a lamppost, installed when the house was built, as out of place in the lampless countryside as the lamppost in the Narnia stories. It was a sodium light, which burned yellow and washed out all other colours, turning everything yellow and black. She was not my girlfriend. My girlfriend lived in Croydon, where I went to school, a grey-eyed blonde of unimaginable beauty who was, as she often complained to me, puzzled, never able to figure out why she was going out with me. But she was a friend and she lived about a 10-minute walk away from me, beyond the fields, in the older part of the town. I was going to walk over to her house to play records and sit and talk. I walked out of our house, ran down the grass slope to the drive, and stopped, dead, in front of a woman, standing beneath the street lamp, staring up at the house. She was dressed like a gypsy queen in a stage play, or a Moorish princess. She was handsome, not beautiful. She has no colours, in my memory, save only shades of yellow and black. And, startled to find myself standing opposite someone where I had expected no one, I said, "Hello?" The woman said nothing. She looked at me. "Are you looking for anyone?" I said, or something of the sort, and again she said nothing. And still she looked at me. This unlikely woman in the middle of nowhere, dressed like something from a dream, and still she said nothing at all. She began to smile though, and it was not a nice smile. And suddenly I found myself scared, utterly, profoundly scared, like a character in a dream, and I walked away down the drive, heart thudding in my chest and around the corner. I stood there out of sight of the house for a moment, and then I looked back, and there was no one standing in the lamplight. I was 50 paces from the house, but I could not, would not turn around and go back. I was too scared. Instead I ran up the dark tree-lined Flint Lane and into the old town, and up another road and down the road to my friend's house, and got there speechless, breathless, jabbering and scared, as if all the hounds of hell had chased me there. I told her my story, and we phoned my parents, who told me there was no one standing under the streetlight, and agreed, a little reluctantly, to come and drive me home, as I would not walk home that night. And that is all there is to my story. I wish there was more. I wish I could tell you about the gypsy encampment that was burned down on that site 200 years earlier, or anything that would give some sense of closure to the story, anything that would make it story-shaped. But there was no such encampment. So like all eruptions of the odd and strange into my world, the event sits there, unexplained. It is not story-shaped. And, in memory, all I have is the yellow-black of her smile and a shadow of the fear that followed.